Traditional strategies, they don't work anymore.
AI is making decisions faster than we can understand them.
Everyone's selling answers. Nobody has the truth.
Disruption isn't coming. It's already here.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit?
Outwired.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Outwired. We are back after 2 weeks off. One, because I was deathly ill with Ebola, monkeypox, or the common cold, whichever one you choose. Depends on whether you're a man or my girlfriend. It was very, very serious, deadly disease, though. And then Scott had a commitment last week that I don't know if he wants to talk about, but I'll let him decide. So we're back after 2 weeks and excited to talk about all kinds of things that have happened in the world of AI, robotics, automation, all that kind of stuff. Lots of data to go over. So many, many things. And that's why I don't answer my phone. Somebody called me during the intro. I didn't recognize the name, but somebody called me and they don't realize, like, my voicemail says, like, email me. I don't check my voicemail. I've literally not listened to a voicemail message in two and a half years. So I don't know how much business I've missed from that, but I don't. I used to have a desk phone in Cleveland that I would answer, then I would answer more, right? But I just got so busy and now I don't have a desk phone. I just have my phone and I don't know. Do you pick up the phone, Scott, when people call you?
Rarely, only if I recognize it.
Well, if I recognize it, that's different, right?
But no, if it's a number I don't recognize, I never answer it. Never.
Like, I mean, if I know, like, if it's an existing client, I know who you are. Like, I'm not, I'm answering the phone for you. But most of my clients also will just text me or email me. They know that that's just the way that you get a quick response from me.
Right.
So, because I could be in a meeting or something.
Efficient.
So lots of stuff has happened, man. It's crazy. We're going to talk about the 2026 outdoor hospitality pricing report that we came out today. I'm sure there's some other data outside of that too that we're going to maybe talk about that has come across your desk. We're going to talk about AI and automation at the back end of the show, some changes and stuff there. We're going to talk about how AI is moving science at a ridiculous pace, which I think is interesting, just to understand and ground ourselves in the fact that this is much more than just a chatbot, right? So I got some couple videos we're going to play there. And then we're going to talk about how, like, maybe the world is going to become more nomadic, which would be an interesting study. We should run some of that through AI live in real time. Like what it thinks if Starlink and full self-driving of automobiles and RVs and all that stuff becomes, which it will, mainstream, right? How does that then, especially if you look at, like, and again, nobody wants people to be laid off. We've talked about the jobs and all that stuff, but especially as more people begin to lose their jobs, obviously there's a whole nother thing of, like, how government reacts and how people pay for their bills, and right, like, it's not like I'm not threatened here too. We're all threatened. But, like, does that then allow you to become more nomadic and, I don't know, not necessarily remote work, but remote do something, because you don't have to be in an office 5 days a week then, right? If you have obviously you have to have the income. There's a whole lot of nuance to that, right? But maybe that causes us to spread out and get out of cities and benefits disproportionately campgrounds, and maybe people travel a whole lot more than they do now. And boy, that's an interesting world to unpack, I think. But for now, let me shut up and ask you what came across your desk for the week.
Just briefly, I'll touch upon my trip last week, which was spent with a sales team, and I tell this to people all the time. It's like, if you want to get that first shot across the bow of what's going on out there in any industry, start talking to the salespeople, people who are out there every day, meeting with people and prospects, especially their point of view on it, meaning with prospects, people who don't necessarily purchase from them. So, because
What did you learn?
what did I learn?
Oh, sorry. Were you going to get there? I was just trying to speed you up. Sorry. I wasn't really. Go ahead. Just fucking with you.
Is that you what as an organization, what you can do is start identifying gaps in what you're providing. Sometimes, and we all know salespeople sometimes will tend to be a little bit, boisterous in their views.
Shocking.
It's fine, but we also know that they're talking to people at a level every day that
Mhm.
most people do not. They get into the weeds on these topics. So, one of the things I did I took away from it is the end user that's out there, the campground owners and operators, and how they view the products that help them do their business maybe a little bit easier, a little bit better. They're not always necessarily, they don't know what they don't know, and sometimes they don't know what they actually need to run their businesses.
Okay.
But if you can slow them down, and that was some of the things I learned, was that the people it seemed who had the best success were the ones who were able to slow the person down and really work the lead, if you will, a little bit more, to
Yeah.
not be in a rush, to do a lot more listening. And it was interesting to hear how the problem solving of helping some of these folks out, because sometimes the campground owner is just like, I just want this and this, and that's it. That's all I want. I don't want anything else. And it's like, whoa, hold on there. You do need more.
Are you sure? Yeah.
But and sometimes the other thing too is the language we use. This is something that was mentioned quite a bit, that we, especially, for us, in our work, we speak a certain language, and the people out there, like the campground owners and operators, don't always speak the same language that we do.
Like saying fuck, or other more nuanced examples?
Well, that as well, but how is it used and in what context?
Gotcha. So
But-
way more sophisticated is what you're talking about than what I just
Yes.
said. Okay.
But yeah, and so it's a matter of really kind of sometimes taking a step back, really and truly listening, and then trying to understand what it is people are saying. Because sometimes when they say no, they may be saying no to something that you haven't even tried to provide them with. If that makes sense. But
Yeah.
they're saying no, but they're saying no because they don't fully understand what it is that you're trying to provide to them. And I think that again, an astute salesperson or anyone working within the industry, just really, you're a marketing person. We know marketing people love jargon and acronyms.
Well, especially you take it on top of me and what I'm talking about every day. But go ahead.
But yeah, so sometimes we say things and it just rolls off our tongue, and we don't necessarily understand that people don't always absorb that, and they don't, or they may think it's something completely different.
Yeah, I shared this chart earlier in Fireside Chats. I'll share it here again to not knowing what we talked about, right? So this is each dot. This has been going, I guess, I don't know if it's viral, but I've seen it a bunch of places on a bunch of AI shows, right? Each dot is 3.2 million people. 2,500 dots equals 8.1 billion humans on the planet. Color is the most advanced AI interaction in February of 2026. So the one red dot there in the bottom right-hand corner is 0.06% of people in the entire world, 2 to 5 million people in the entire world that use AI for coding. So I'm in the 0.06%. I would imagine that I must be a little tiny bit higher than that. I don't know what that percentage is, but just by using it for coding, I'm in the 0.06% of the world. If you pay for any AI tool, which I think you do, Scott, right?
Yes, I do.
So if you pay for an AI tool, you are 0.3% of the entire global population. Only 15 to 35 million people pay for any AI tool in the entire world, even at $20 a month, which is insane to me. It's nuts. Again, I'm in my own bubble, though, with my own jargon, right? The green is people who have used a free chatbot. 16% of the global population, just 16%, 1.3 billion have used a free chatbot. That doesn't mean used regularly. That means maybe talk to it once, and right. 84% of people on the planet, 6.8 billion people, have never touched AI. And I just look at how fast this is moving, and so like this is really interesting to me. And lots of people have posted about this. I don't know who this Ruben guy is. I just found him in search on LinkedIn. Kind of looks like an AI guy in the little top right corner. Or maybe I'm just jealous of his feature set and his jawbone and all that stuff. Anyway, I've seen a lot of people use this as justification for like, well, you keep getting told that you're far behind in AI and you can't get caught up, and you didn't adopt it fast enough. And this chart shows you that you have plenty of time. But that is the most dangerous thing I've ever heard anybody say. Because I think what this chart shows is that people are going to be so surprised by the speed at which this comes to replace their job. They're not going to have any sense of it, is how I view that chart. What do you think, Scott? Being in the
right, because it's going to
3% of people in the world, Scott.
It becomes at a certain point it becomes exponential. The growth, it's like, it isn't incremental. The growth will.
But it doesn't need to. But I think the difference here is, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the difference is the exponential growth doesn't need to come in human adoption. This time.
That is true.
And so I was watching. You've heard me mention Tom Billio before. He has a really good video. I'll send you a link after the show if you want to watch it. He was talking about like just jobs and how everything's different. And he was going back through history, and he was talking, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm not going to do it as good as he did, right? But he was talking about all the technology advances in the future, going all the way back to the Luddites, right? And how the Luddites took hammers to a bunch of the machines because they thought they were going to take out their jobs, and they had no way of any concept of seeing of where technology would go and take them, right? And it would create new jobs and all that other stuff. But so he walked through that period of time where like the loomers who were hand weaving and sewing stuff, right? Before the whatever that loom machine came out is called. What is it called? I don't even know. The thing, anyway, whatever. The machine that did the sewing. Whatever that was. But when that came out, like there's often this narrative that like not instantly, pretty quickly after, like that technology creates new jobs. But it takes so much time to saturate through the world, through the states, through the countries, through the whatever provinces, all that stuff, that like he had some really interesting data points that showed that it took like 60 to 80 years before the technology advancements that were brought apart by things like machinery, like the loom, came back and actually benefited the people who lost their jobs because they were doing it by hand.
Mm.
And he showed this pattern throughout history, through the Industrial Revolution, through the farmers, through like we went through the whole like people came off the farmland and got into the factories in the late 1900s. Same thing happened with electricity and all that stuff. But it was a generational, like it took until like the 50s through a world war and through everything else. And people had to fight for all their rights and the labor laws and all that shit. It took like 60 years again, 60 to 80 years before people started benefiting from the factories mass producing and causing the technology that created the jobs. Now, disproportionately, like who benefited, this is like the internet. We can remember this. He talked about this. When the internet came along, so many people lost their jobs in administrative and office and secretarial, and because you could put all that stuff on the internet now, right? In databases and on websites and all that kind of stuff. And those people, if you look at the data, and it's really ugly, in the early 2000s, you see a spike in overdose deaths. And there's a whole huge spike in like liver cancer because people were drinking more. And so like technology did create new jobs. The internet did create new jobs, but it created new jobs for the knowledge workers, for the college kids, for the people who were coming out and learning the software. And the people who didn't know that, like they're still basically going through like a 10, 20, 30-year period that isn't even going to get to finish because of AI stomping down on top of it, right? But those people, like, it's a generational thing before it comes back and benefits the people whose jobs it's going to take, which I thought was pretty fascinating to look at that throughout history. Not saying it's like a joyous, fun thing, right?
Right, but it's still, I mean, yeah, it's the cycle of things.
Right. But that's where I
Yeah.
think like the problem is like I can't tell you that AI is not going to create any new jobs because I have no foresight into what the right. Obviously, it will in some capacity, but it won't create I don't think it creates enough net new jobs because to this point in time, we have had, and I don't want to talk about this for even a majority of the show, right? But to this point, technology has always been augmenting humans. It has been making humans move faster through the assembly line but the assembly line always required people to work. And the loom machine or whatever the fuck, I can't remember the name of it. It's really annoying. I'm going to ask AI. But it required people to still be at all points of that to sew, even though they weren't actually sewing by hand, right? And it always augmented humans, but this time is different because the technology is augmenting the entire job. It's augmenting the intelligence behind everything, which is where I think this is different.
Hmm.
But it was fascinating to see all that data and go back and look at how history, like there's this narrative that like everybody's going to be fine. And that's technically true throughout history. Again, I think it's different with AI, but it's technically true throughout history. However, it took like a generation for that to actually happen. You know, the farmer who lost his land to the technology or whatever the circumstance was, to the factory or whatever else, right? The horse and buggy operator who lost his job to the car, whatever. Like he didn't just go out the next day and get a job driving a car. Some did, right? But a whole lot of people, like there was somebody who the day before Henry Ford released the Model T, there was somebody who had just bought like 2,000 horses. Like literally the day before. Like, fuck. The next day, the car, right? And so I just think it's really interesting to put some of that into perspective, that there's, regardless of what happens, if I'm completely wrong and AI still creates a situation where net new jobs are created because of AI. I don't know how that happens, but let's pretend it does. I think it's still 60 to 80 years, whatever you want. Let's see, even if it's 20 or 30, right? If it moves whatever faster to create those jobs, it's still a massive gap between what's going to happen to the people who have jobs now and then they're going to get laid off, and then the ability of them to reskill, upskill before it comes back around to them to where they can make money again. It's a conversation that I have not heard anybody besides Tom talk about.
Yeah, I haven't read anything about that either. Part of me wonders about the kind of the shortened cycle that AI in and of itself creates. That maybe the cycle gets dramatically shortened because of just the nature of AI and the nature of
maybe
technology. I'm just throwing that out there, that maybe the adjustment is made by AI itself to create that and fill those gaps sooner. That's that's polishing things a little bit, but it could.
Well, and you have to remember too, there's going to be opportunities, right? So, and there's a lot of podcasts with this train of thought. I'm not the one who's originally saying this by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot of school of thought from really smart people who are way smarter than me, right? Who say like entrepreneurship is the future. Like you need to be an entrepreneur, you need to create something, you need to, whatever it is, right? Maybe it's a business to walk little old ladies around the neighborhood. There's going to be a lot of that. That's net new jobs created, right? There's going to be a lot of people who are just going to disconnect, who are going to shut down their email, shut down their social media because it's all going to be so much slop. Like you probably see this in your inbox already. I know I do, but I get like 700 emails a day anyway. You've seen the amount of spam start to increase in your inbox, right? Junk mail. Yeah. This is okay. Now look at, you remember the chart that we just looked at? There are like 0.3% of people pay for any AI tool, and you're already like almost every other email is spam because of, in large part because of AI. You've seen this increase over the last 6 months. Now imagine what happens when 10% of the global population can use AI to send spam emails. 30, 40, right? Like we're fucked. The only way email survives is to go to an AI inbox that filters all that junk out. And then how are you going to reach your campers and all that? That's another topic we're not going to get into, right? But my point is entrepreneurship. So here's the fascinating thing for you. I'm going to say this right now, Scott. I have the keys to how you can retire successfully if you want to. And I'm going to say it on this show just to date it. And then everybody who watches the show, or you can come back and tell me you did it. I'm going to do it too, for sure. Here's what you want to do, okay? Elon Musk is releasing robotaxis, as we already know, right, in different cities. He has stated that, and we all know how Elon's timelines are, right? Okay. But he has stated that before 2027, so by the end of this year, you will be able to purchase your own cybercab, which is not a Tesla Model Y with a steering wheel, which is a cybercab without a steering wheel, right? A fully autonomous car for under $30,000 before the end of this year. Now, whether he meets that goal is a whole nother thing. And then there's also, is there regulatory approval? Is there whatever? Is it blah, 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 blah? That's his stated goal. Then what he wants people to do with that and what is buy the cybercabs themselves for under $30,000 and put them into the robotaxi network. So if you, this is the fucking be all end all, Scott, I'm telling you right now, of entrepreneurial opportunity for the next 15 years. It's like buying a rental apartment in 1975, rental property in 1975, before everybody figured out what the fuck you could do with it, right? This is what this is that I'm about to tell you. You go buy a cybercab for $30,000 US, if that's what it costs. He said it's going to be under $30,000, right? There's tweets from Elon saying this. You go buy one. Sorry, you don't buy one. You finance one. And then there's a really good YouTube video I'll send you on this. It's like an hour and a half long. I have not watched the whole thing, okay? But it's some guy breaking down the numbers on all this shit. And he breaks down all the numbers on like how much it would cost you to finance with the insurance rates, how much it would cost you to have people clean the car, to pay for the supercharging, to pay for the insurance, to do everything that it would cost you to own that vehicle. And then take it and just put it in the cybercab or the robotaxi network as part of Tesla's app and let it go to work for you as passive income 24/7. And the most conservative numbers show that if you buy a $30,000 car, and again, you have to be in a like metro area where people are like, it has to be big enough for like an Uber, right? Type deal. The most conservative numbers show that if you finance that car, not only can you pay back the interest in the loan and come ahead every month, but you can make $15,000 to $20,000 USD profit your first year off one car. And you don't have to do anything because it will drive itself to a detail place to get cleaned. It will drive itself to a charger to get charged. There's no property to maintain. There's no land. There's no tenants to evict. There's no nothing. And you just buy 2, 5, 10 of these cars and just send them out on the robotaxi network and let them go to work and make you passive income.
All right.
That's the thing. You wait and see. I'm telling you, Scott, you wait and see. I'll send you the video if you're interested in it. But I picked it apart to death. And it was like, that is the conservative estimate. Because what Elon has said is that it's going to be, I think, a 75-25 or 70-30 split, to where, just like an Uber driver, Tesla will keep 30% of the ride share cost or whatever, and you will keep 70%. And that number factors in all the other expenses to run the car and everything else. Now, you could buy it up front, but then you'd have to lock in that capital. You'd have to spend the $30,000 up front. But if you finance the cars, then there's no cash that's being trapped as an outlay, and it's pure profit from month one. It's pretty insane.
All right. I'm down with that. I need some passive income.
Like, people will figure this out, right? This is not going to last forever, just like people figured out rental properties. And eventually it's going to get to a tipping point at a scale where there's so many on the road that there's not going to be enough room for new entrants in the market. But the people who are early adopters into this stuff, you're going to make a lot of money, but just by sitting on your ass.
Which is awesome.
So anyway, all right. What else you got for data? Anything interesting? I know we're going to talk about the pricing report. What do you have for data?
I have something that has been, you and I have talked about this. I've been talking about it for years. And I finally gathered the data to actually execute on it.
Okay.
Which is this whole idea of life stage versus generation.
Okay. Explain a little bit more for dumb people like me.
The idea is that when we talk in our industry, in any industry, whatever industry is selling things to anyone, they talk about the generation someone's in, whether it's Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, boomers.
Don't forget about us, Scott. I don't want to interrupt you, but don't forget about me. I actually learned that I'm a Zennial, born between 1978 and 1982, and I have special powers because I grew up without technology and then was thrust into it.
What you just explained to me, what you just said is fundamentally the problem.
No, I'm special, Scott. God damn it. I am special. You're not going to take that away from me.
I'm taking it away from you right now.
No.
You've lost your power in this room. But what you said really, it illustrates the issue, is that someone born in that time frame, it's like you're right in the middle of two generations. Yet, depending on that 1 year split, you're going to be put into a bucket, one way or the
special
other.
Bucket.
And your bucket is not that special. It's but people talk about
YouTube video about it. It said I was special. Damn it.
The generation between boomers and Gen X is called Generation Jones, for example. That's another one. It's merely a way of trying to explain something, because the whole idea of generations doesn't make any sense. It's like what we're doing is we're marketing to and we're describing people based on the year they were born and not who they are, not where they're at in their life. So I created a battery of questions. I got it down to 8. And I created an algorithm, and I ran a segmentation on it that puts people into 5 different life stages. And as an example, and I won't get into the weeds on this because I could be here all day talking about it.
Well, it's fine. It's interesting. So
we talk about Gen Z, but Gen Z, when we look at them as a part of these segments, they're split nearly evenly between 3 different life stages. One is transitional, one is like actively building their families and careers, and the other is being independent and self-directed. So just within Gen Z, they're in those 3. Millennials are a little bit different because they tend to be in this active family and career builders segment to a much greater degree, but they kind of overlap with the Zers and the independent and self-directed to a degree. Gen X is skewed toward the other end, and Gen X is split evenly between 3 and 4 different segments, which includes being independent, self-directed, being part of established couples, and multi-generational supporters. So, and boomers, are really leaning into kind of just this established couples phase. No kids, they're couples. They don't have a lot of all these other things going on, but they still have some overlap into being, boomers have huge divorce rates. So there's a large segment of them that are in this independent and self-directed life stage.
You said boomers have a high divorce rate? Sorry.
Yes, one of the highest ever. So,
okay. But I wonder if that's impacted because I know we're not talking about generations. Younger people than boomers just don't get married in as high numbers.
That's part of it. The boomers are part of the generation where, if you think about when no-fault divorce came into law, that people didn't have to justify why they got a divorce. That no-fault divorce, came in about the time the oldest boomers were, becoming adults, and the increase of women in the workplace, dual career families. So it was pretty much a transitional time in the late 60s, early 70s. So that's why you had that phenomenon. But the point here is that Gen Zers are a much more diverse group. They are not homogenous at all, and they're again, if you treat them that way, you're going to miss out on a lot of really good information. And so what I'm doing now is I'm putting together a much more comprehensive review of what each of these segments is, what it means, developing some personas, and then we can talk about it in more detail at that point, and maybe people will want to start using it. I've already used it with one client, and it's really fucking cool. So it like when you start looking at it and you see how much it makes sense based on the client and what their product is and everything, you're like, oh wow, this makes more sense than trying to just say,
Are you going to put out a research paper on it though, or anything? Or
I think so. I'm
okay,
gonna,
good.
yeah, because it turned out pretty cool. I it's one of those things I kind of did it on stealth mode because I don't know if this thing was going to work, So,
yeah,
but no, it turned out. It actually turned out really good. I'm really excited about it, and I think people, anyone, especially anyone who's in marketing or building a company or a startup, whatever you're trying to do, and you're trying to talk to people and communicate with them, this is the kind of thing that's going to take what you're doing to a different level, because you're going to have this new, deeper understanding of who they are and where they're at in their lives.
Interesting.
That's why I'm all disheveled, because I've had my head down in data, and my hair is all over the place. So I had to wear a hat, and you can see it's flying all over. My sister would tell me to just take the hat off and do the Einstein thing, just be like the crazy scientist.
Well, that's what I am. Like all the things that I'm building, like I swear to God, I don't think I actually thinking about this right now. I think you'll laugh at me when I say this. I don't think I've been out of the house in like 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think I have. Which is fine with me. I need to get out more for sure, right? I'm gonna go to my girlfriend's soccer match tonight. But I'm just head down building so much stuff that by the time I'm done working for the day, and when I say I'm done working, that's like 6-7 o'clock ish. And then I go down and if my girlfriend's not here, she's working on a shift worker at the hospital. I'm still learning more. I'm still learning, right? Mm-hmm. But by the time I get down to that couch at 6 or 7 o'clock, which is after at least 12 hours of work, right? I'm dead. My brain is fried. I don't want to go be social or go be outside or go be I'm cooked. I can feel my brain be cooked, right? You know what I'm talking about because you do all the data and analysis stuff too. So, but it's interesting. I don't think I would have told you that 2 years ago. But it's moving so fast that I feel I just put my head down and I look up and it's 12 hours later.
Yeah. I early in my career, when I worked in healthcare, I was in the marketing department, and I just remember once getting called into a meeting because they wanted me to talk about some of the research. And I just remember the VP of marketing just said to the room, it's don't ask Scott any questions for a few minutes here. He's been locked in his office for the last few hours, and he probably can't talk. Mm-hmm. It's kind of true. It's my brain, it just wasn't ready for people and interactions yet. It just because you get so immersed in it.
Yeah, it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because the isolation stuff has got I have that societal problem, right? I mean, it doesn't bother me. I've been working from home for 14, 15 years. I don't know. I'm just weird. I know everybody says it doesn't bother them, but it really doesn't bother me. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
I guess I get enough talking. It's probably because I get so much talking. I'm in so many meetings every single day.
Yeah.
That is my compensation for it, right?
Right. I'm the exact same way. I've been working at home for about the same amount of time, and it's yeah. When your day is lined up with meetings and talking to people, even though it's
I feel you're still being social.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why everybody probably wonders why I talk so much when I get on calls with them. Hey, how you doing? How's the weather? It's
all right. What do we want to do? Do we want to talk about this pricing report?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. Let me see if I have a link here to the thing. I think I sent it to somebody earlier today, a direct PDF link. All right. So you share my screen, Jessica. So we released this today, 2026 Outdoor Hospitality Pricing Report. A little bit of background on, I don't know, I'm trying to remember. I was about to say a little bit of background on why we did it, and then I'm like, let me think about why we actually did it. Uh, it was over Christmas break, and I think I told you this, but it was over Christmas break where I just started thinking about, like, we have all this data that we're gathering in fragmented ways from the clients we do marketing for, from the AI chats, from the calls. We also know that there's all this data available to us to go grab from, like, Google Maps or clients' websites or, well, anybody's website, right? And we feel like nobody is doing a good job. No, I'm going to rephrase that. Nobody's doing a great job at aggregating this stuff together in a way that can really give profound takeaways to the industry. Now, there are lots of good people who are doing reports like this, right? CampSpot does a lot of good stuff with their data. Sage, Outdoor Hospitality, puts out some really good reports, right? You have worked with the Glamping Association on a lot of really good reports over the years. There are more that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, right? But those are the top ones that come to my mind. But nobody, to my knowledge, has put out anything like this. And so over Christmas break, I started looking at, and there are some other products and lots of other reports we're going to release in the coming months. Some with pricing and some with a lot of other data, right? But we started looking at this and saying, what is something, and this is really me iterating back and forth with AI, right? Like, what is something that we can put together if we have this tool and this tool and this tool and this tool and whatever else, right? That would really impact the industry. And so we narrowed it down and came up with like a pricing report. And so we went out and got the data. Like, somebody was asking me for one of the reservation systems earlier today, how I gathered the data. Like, we basically had a minimum number of, and there's a methodology section in there, right? But the nuts and bolts of it are, like, we had a minimum number of state or campgrounds that we needed per state to make the data viable, right? And then we basically went to Google Maps and said, give me these numbers of campgrounds. That obviously they have to have a website and they have to have online reservations for us to get pricing. So, but then we just took it and we got all the pricing information and put it all together. And this is all forward looking, right? This is forward looking for the entire year of 2026. It's not backward looking. It's not based on pricing that's old. It's not based on static pricing. Some people have dynamic pricing, some people don't. So anyway, the methodology is in there. But like, the idea was let's put together something super comprehensive on the level of a KOA report. Not that we're compared to that, because their report is completely different. And their report has so much value, it's insane. But like, I have not, until this point, and I reckon you can tell me, Scott, like, give me your honest opinion when you give your thoughts on this. But like, until this point, I've never seen a report that is as comprehensive. Not saying it's better or equal to or worse, but is as comprehensive with data as the KOA report until this. Have you?
No. And what this does is it takes that topic, pricing, and really gets into the weeds on it. That's kind of where I say this to anyone who will listen to me, and I think Brian actually did, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. But the idea is to find topics that aren't covered in other reports and then really dig into them. And that's where the value comes in. And I think that's what you did here, is like you took the topic of pricing and just, really picked it apart. That's what you want. You want to take that kind of that forensic look at, what's in this database and this set of data here that, it's sliced and diced 100 different ways. So yeah, it's good stuff.
And so for our podcast listeners, I'm just going to read out some of the executive summary, and then we'll go through, like, call out a couple things that we want to talk about, Scott, if you're interested, because you had a preview of the report about a week ago, I think. The American camping industry has operated without comprehensive pricing data for decades. Operators set rates based on intuition and local competition. Campers plan trips without knowing whether they're getting a fair deal. Industry analysts cite averages that mask enormous variation. This report changes that. We analyzed 609,863 pricing data points from 2,110 private campgrounds, so just private, not public, no state parks or anything like that, right? This doesn't include anything like the individual, like, hip camp places. This is private campgrounds across 48 states. To answer a simple question, what does camping really cost in 2026? The answer is more complex and more useful than a single number. The national median for an RV site is $62 a night. The Northeast costs 18.2% more than the Midwest. Timing matters less than you think. So the national seasonal swing is just 8%, about $5 per night between peak June and January, which is insane to me. Like you were talking about the hotels in Maine. Give that anecdote. How they change between winter and summer.
Oh yeah. Like for example, just last week, I booked a room on the Portland waterfront, right on Commercial Street in downtown Portland.
Was it the Hyatt? Because I've been to the Hyatt place there. It's really nice.
No, it's
No, the Hyatt place isn't on the harbor. Never mind.
It's the Hilton, and the room costs I don't know, $125, something like that. In the summertime, that same room goes for $450, $475.
Yeah. So this blows my mind. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was done. I was done.
So that blows my mind that people just aren't doing. This shows people aren't doing the rate management, right? $5 a night between June and January. Weekend premiums average only 2.4% for RV sites. So if you let me just pull up my little calculator here, right? So if we say the national median RV site is, I'm going to pull up my calculator, $62 a night. And we say the difference between weekend premiums are only 2.4%. And obviously, this isn't the real calculation. I'm just doing math, right? Off of this number. That means the difference between a weekend campsite and a weekday campsite is only $1.49. What the fuck are you doing with your prices? Right? I mean, is that shocking to you?
It is.
Everybody goes camping on the weekends.
If I was to guess, if you would have asked me before, I would have said it would have to be, depending on site type, but like say it's a pull-through RV site, I would say 10 to $20 difference between weekday and weekend, at least.
I mean, I'm sure there are outliers, right? Again, this is national, right? But and then the figure, then there's a 148% gap between the most expensive and most affordable states. A camper in Delaware pays $109 for what costs $44 in North Dakota. Geography isn't just a factor in camping costs, it's the factor. So that was crazy to me. Like the difference between an RV site in North Dakota and Delaware is like the cost of a camping site in Kansas, I think, or something like that. So like you get 2 nights for the price of one or whatever. That you go to North Dakota and Kansas and stay 2 nights, and that would still be cheaper than what you'd stay 1 night in Delaware for. Florida and Arizona flipped the calendar, which I think we kind of knew this, but charging 12 to 25% more in winter than summer. That's kind of expected. The assumption that off-season means savings doesn't hold in America's warmest destinations, but also that's because, that's not off-season for the Florida and Arizona, right?
Right.
Top performing parks show price spreads exceeding $480 between low and peak rates for the same site type. That's probably cabins more than anything else. But the industry is adopting revenue management practices somewhere, some places. So anyway, so there's like a ton of data in here, right? Is there anything in your review of this that you think we should cover, or do you just want to kind of scroll through this, or what do you want to do?
Let's just kind of go through it. I think, I'm trying to remember if I think you do have a call out on like amenities, especially like type of, hookups and stuff on the sites. I think that comes through a little bit. I think there's some
site features and premiums on 30 pages.
Yeah.
And 6.
Yeah. That kind of thing I think is, definitely of interest.
Do you want to jump to that?
Sure.
Make me scroll. I should have like a clickable table of contents. That'll be the upgrade for 2027. So what features actually cost more? Every campground, just for the podcast, I'm reading some of this out. Every campground reservation involves choices, pull through or back end, full hookup or electric only, standard site or premium. The pricing implications of these choices are rarely transparent. Industry lore suggests certain features command premiums. Our data reveals which ones actually do and which ones don't. Some findings confirm expectations, others overturn them entirely. So we got like oceanfront sites to the waterfront, right? But it's the word of how you phrase it, right? So oceanfront has a median price of 166.50. Then you go lakefront second, it drops all the way down to 92.50 as a median, not an average. Then beachfront is 73.22. Waterfront generic, but just not specific like beachfront, lakefront, oceanfront is 71.25. Water view is 68.96. Riverfront Creekside looks like it should have been in the table in the wrong order, but Riverfront Creekside is $70. Should have been up one level row. And then non-waterfront is 61.95. And then you can see site featured premiums. So that's the same thing. That's oceanfront. So there's VIP, there's covered sites at 82, scenic sites at 82.70. And these are just how people describe their sites in the reservation systems, right? So they'll label it as a VIP site or an oceanfront or a luxury or a premium or a covered or a pull through or whatever else, right? And so there's some of the premium keywords there. What parks call their sites influences what they can charge. It isn't just marketing, it's economics. Luxury average 198.05 or 159.4% above the data set average. The word signals amenities, finish, and experience that justify premium positioning. Talked about oceanfront. Amenity stacking to features compound. I don't know. You tell me if there's anything else you want to talk about in here. But hookup type, full hookup sites are 64 median. Water and electric are 57.50. Electric only is 46.50, and dry primitive is 37.72. There's a 57% gap between full hookup and dry camping. It represents the largest single amenity premium in our data. That was interesting. Features without a premium. So having a pool, the premium is 23%. And then covered sites is 17.9%. Dog park is 18%. And pull through is 3.6%, which is crazy to me that pull through is so small.
I know. You mentioned this in the report, and that's one of the items I attended to as well, because in any of the research I've ever done since the beginning of time is that people always talk about the pull-through site is the one they want. And in this era we live in now, especially where there's a lot of people out there that aren't really good at parking RVs, like they all want pull-through sites. And the fact that they're not priced any higher, really, I mean, essentially that's even. It's kind of amazing to me that that to me is something that is very desirable. And there are a lot of people, and I think people should keep this in mind too, that there's a decent number of people who, if they try booking a campsite at your park and you do not have a pull-through available, they will move on to someone else. So it's that important to them. So again, that's why I'm so amazed at the lack of differential between the two.
Yeah, this is crazy. Physical pool infrastructures, amperage and size premiums. So 50 amp sites are 64.22, 30-50 amp are 63.36. Such a small difference, but still 30-50, right? These are what people advertise, right? So I know some of this crosses over, but you're saying it's a 50 amp site in the amenities section of the reservation system, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're labeling it as such. So people obviously, you should have seen this list before we condensed it down to 5. It's like, I think there's like 150 different ways that people said stuff. But so 50 amp is 64, but the difference between 30 and 50 amp is only like, well, less than $1. And then down to 20 amp is like $60. And then, so it's interesting that 20 amp is priced higher, even though it's like what, 50 cents, 60 cents than 30 amp. And then 20, 30, 50, and 20, 30 amp. So that's interesting. The unique sites, right? So this is like only one site of that type, 111.22 versus 2 to 5 sites, 87.22, 6 to 10, 71.19. So like the more the less scarce something is, the less it costs. The more scarce it is, the more it costs. Supply and demand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Makes sense. I don't know. What else do you want to go into? We got accommodation types or whatever you want to do. We got lots of data.
Let's talk about the accommodation types just a little bit, because I think that's something that, any campground owner, especially if they're considering making modifications at their park, or looking at the pricing of how they're pricing their accommodations should absolutely pay attention to.
Yeah, so we broke this down into a couple different categories, like, and the methodology here is at the bottom. So, like, we broke glamping and lodging into two different categories. And the way we categorized it, we actually added this because you told us to, Scott, just the definition of how it is. Looked it up. So the methodology, and I just want to read it so I don't mess it up. Glamping versus lodging. Glamping includes safari tents, yurts, teepees, spelled both ways, geodesic domes, tree houses, airstreams, covered wagons, bell tents, luxury tents, and unique or unusual accommodations. Lodging includes cottages, tiny houses, park models, vacation rentals, mobile homes, bungalows, traditional cabins, log cabins, rustic cabins, and A-frames. So that's the difference there. And then see if you go back up to the unique or the accommodation types, you can see like unique glamping is like that kind of like, it's not a dome, it's not a treehouse, it's not a yurt, it's something unique, right?
It could be a caboose. I know people that do
a caboose. Like it could be a
It's like, yeah.
So it commands a premium because it's unique, right? So 188.05, but only by like a couple bucks over a dome at 185.32. And then beneath that is a covered wagon at 168, and then a treehouse at 166, and then on and down to yurt, airstream, vintage, safari, glamping, tent, TP. I don't know how you decide which way you want to spell that, but
I think it's a regional thing.
Is it? Okay.
I think so. I think what's interesting, in some of these results is that the cost, the pricing of these different types of accommodations is not necessarily based on how much it actually costs. To construct and to put on site. It's based on what you can get, based on consumer demand. Because covered wagons, especially if you get the ones with the bathroom, then they're fairly expensive units. And actually a lot of the tree houses are too. They're usually priced at a little bit higher premium, have more, their insurance premiums are higher. Whereas in a yurt, which really isn't that far behind, is relatively inexpensive. So anyway, I'm just kind of throwing that out, that it doesn't necessarily follow the actual price or cost of these units. And that's what.
Well, no, and the other interesting thing though is remember, like we did 2,110 private campgrounds. There were some there. I don't think that there were any glamping only properties in this data set. We will probably do a different glamping report at some point, right?
Sure.
So there's campgrounds with glamping or RV resorts with glamping. Now they could have had that separated, segmented, siloed off, right? Depends what they had. So I think that if you were to do a study of like glamping only resorts, that these numbers would be higher because of the way that they structure their experience. They have hot tubs, or they have other amenities, or butlers, or concierges, or food service, or right. Then you command a much higher price. So I think that's something to take into consideration too. And then cabin price hierarchy. So we got bungalows. So bungalows at 217 are higher by $30. Is that math right? $30 than all other forms of glamping. Cottages at 206 are higher than all glamping, including unique ones. So are lodges at 205.42. Fascinating. You can see it, like I've read all this information, right? But like I process so much stuff. It's a shock to me every time I read it. I should just open this up and read it once a week, and I'll get new insights. Oh, I forgot that was true. So cabins with lofts, bungalow versus rustic is $104 difference. Cabins with lofts are $204. Deluxe luxury, again, this is self-defined by the owner, right? Deluxe luxury is $185.31. Standard cabins are $163.86. Studios, rustics, and camping basics are $112, which seems to me like that is high for a rustic camping cabin, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's kind of like, I remember paying $65 when we used to stay in some of the rustic cabins at the KOA properties, but that was like 2012, 13, right? Long time ago. But Camping cabins and basic cabins, minimal amenities, often just walls and roof, average 112. And then we have the different types of cabins by sites. We have tent pricing, tent site spectrum, cabin to RV multiplier. At parks offering both RV sites and cabin accommodations, cabins average roughly 2.5 times the price of RV sites. Multiply varies substantially by property. Some parks show cabin to RV ratios exceeding 10x, typically where basic RV sites coexist with luxury cabin inventory. Others show ratios under 2x, usually where rustic cabins compete with premium RV sites. That's interesting. What else do you want to talk about? I mean, we could talk about this all episode, but
I know we could. I think
it's your hidden gems.
You talked a little bit about the regional state by state stuff.
Yeah, we have 3 states broken down in here, but we have data for them all, but we just picked and chose and put 3 of the biggest ones in here, right?
Right.
Florida, Texas, and California. But go ahead. What were you gonna?
Oh, I was going to say that obviously there are big regional differences, and I think you mentioned that before. Like it's the location, how important that is in determining pricing. And how important it is, for campground owners to really pay attention to more than just your neighbors. That's kind of how a lot of pricing has been approached. What's going on in my neighborhood. It's important to know, by the way, what is going on in your neighborhood. You should know that.
Yeah, but your neighborhood's not always right, as we're.
But
most people don't do rate management at all. So
right, and that's and that's exactly the point. That they may have no idea how they're doing their pricing, and maybe you're the only person who does. So, but yeah, you should definitely pay attention to it. But look at, people should look at these figures. Look at what's going on nationally. Look at what people are willing to pay for different types of sites based on where you're at, what you provide, all those things. It's just really important so that you're managing your business to its best, the best possible outcome for you.
And if you're in Gilroy, California, 4220 Hidden Gem. I think that's right by one of the national parks there. I think it's right at the entrance of some national park, I think. We looked at it on a map. I can't remember now. Gilroy at $42.20 with 4.7 star ratings represents California's best value. An hour from San Francisco, the garlic capital offers Bay Area access at Midwest prices.
Well, there you have it. There's your marketing campaign right there.
Mm-hmm. Then what do we got for Texas? Canyon Lake Parks only average 4.3 rating. It's terrible. Pick it up, Canyon Lake, if you're listening. Yeah, we got state by state, and then we got some key takeaways. So this is geared toward not just owners and operators, right? This is geared toward campers and to have an understanding too.
Sure.
There's a section at the end for campers. For campers, location trumps timing. The single most important finding for trip planning: where you camp matters more than when you camp. We talked about the $65 gap. Consider the Midwest and South. Regional snobbery has real costs. The Midwest and South deliver quality that matches coastal states. 4.44 and 4.48 average stars, respectively, at 10 to 20% lower prices. And then we talked about hidden gems for a minute. Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kentucky emerged as hidden gem concentrations, parks with high ratings at competitive prices. Large groups should consider cabins. The per-person math on lodging favors large groups dramatically. A cabin for 2 costs $102 a person. A cabin for 9 costs $22 a person. That $22 undercuts most tent sites. Families and groups traveling together often default to multiple RV sites or tent camping. Running the per-person numbers on a single large cabin may reveal better value. You have to get along with your family, right?
Yeah, that's the important qualifier there.
We're not going to cover that. We don't have enough data on that on the show. Sunday check-ins save modestly. Sunday is the cheapest day to start a camping stay, saving roughly $12.58 per night versus Friday. Weekend premiums are smaller than assumed. We already talked about that. Pull-through sites are basically free, despite universal preference. Pull-through sites carry just a 3.6% premium, $2.45 a night in our data. This speaks to me of the hesitation and nervousness of everybody to raise prices. Park
Yeah.
owners are so scared to raise prices. Hidden gems exist but require research. Waterfront commands a premium sets for campers. And then takeaways for operators. Pull-through represents a pricing gap. Obviously, minimal premium. Testing premium pricing on pull-through inventory, even modest premiums of 5 to 10% may capture value currently left on the table. Site naming matters. Lakefront adds 33%. Luxury adds 159.4%. Deluxe adds 20%. I know what's going to happen. We're going to go do the 2027 report, and every fucking site's going to be called luxury.
Yeah, right.
just like everybody calls their parks resorts.
Resorts, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't work that way, guys. You can't just add oceanfront and be in Kansas. I'm pretty sure that doesn't work. Somebody's going to try that. You wait. It would be really interesting. Like we should at some point, if we make enough money, we should just open up a gag park somewhere in Kansas and have oceanfront sites and all kinds of different stuff and see how many people book them.
Oh, it would be a lot. I guarantee it.
So interesting. Waterfront may be underpriced. Our data shows lakefront alone 104.42 outprices premium plus waterfront at 90.59. Location premium appears to exceed tier premium in guest valuation. Waterfront sites may warrant more aggressive pricing than current tier-based systems suggest. Scarcity creates pricing power. We talked about unique sites, one-of-a-kind accommodations, command 2 times standard pricing. Limited inventory enables premium positioning that commodity inventory cannot support. Again, you have to market this stuff, though, right? You have to have it on your website. You have to tell the story. You have to have lots of good photos and videos and whatever else, right? You got to give the story of why this unique site is worth all that money. But if you tell the story right, it's very easy. That's not very easy, but it's much easier, right?
Right.
Seasonal strategy should match regional reality. The Northeast swings 15% seasonally. The Southeast swings 10%. A pricing strategy appropriate for New Hampshire may destroy occupancy in Florida. Review generation builds pricing power. This is interesting. Parks with 2,000 plus reviews charge 62% more than equivalent parks with 100 to 199 reviews. Obviously, because if you have lots of reviews, you're probably in a super popular tourist area, getting a lot more transient business.
Right.
Whatever else, right? Or you have a lot more sites. But coastal proximity drives premium more than state context. Fort Myers charges 2.3 times Scott's favorite city, Zephyr Hills, despite both being Florida parks. Competitive context is local, not state level. Do you want to talk about Zephyr Hills, or do you not want to talk about it?
No.
Okay. And takeaway for operators. So just a bunch of other stuff. So the bottom line is for campers, research geography more than dates. Value exists in unexpected places. Large groups should run per person math on cabins, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in here, right? It's like 72 pages long, I think, something like that. And this is only like a glimpse of the data. Like this is the data we included.
There's a lot in there. There's a lot to absorb. But I would recommend people really go through it. Probably take you a few passes to get through everything that you want. But it's absolutely worth your time.
Yeah, state by state rankings here. So in red, $80 plus. Median RV. This is median RV camping prices by state, not average, median. So you can see the 80 plus is concentrated in the Northeast and then in Florida. And then 70 to 80 is California and Indiana. I mean, is it because of Elkhart, or just because it's a crossroads between Ohio and Illinois? Or
yeah, I don't have a way to explain it.
I don't know. Virginia makes sense. And then 60 to 70 is the majority of the other states. And then cheaper states are Wyoming, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama. And then the cheapest states are North Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. I wanted to say New England for a second. I'm like, no, that's not New England. It's Nebraska. My geography skills are not great. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think we did a good job of hitting the the key takeaways on this. I think in terms of the the summary, we hit upon those topics that there are some differences that are non-existent that where there should be, it seems.
Yeah.
Like the site types, the pull through versus back end sites, especially, as well as the seasonal stuff. That the lack of differentiation between seasons, peak season, off season, it baffles me a little bit. That there's something going on there that needs to be addressed.
They're not managing their rates. That's the easiest answer that I can see.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like it's, and I know as campground owners are afraid that their guests will just leave in droves if they raise their rates. And if there's one thing I can say, it's that most people are pretty reasonable. They understand that everybody's costs go up. They understand, what it takes to run a business, and that you are a business owner. The one thing I would tell you to do is just make sure you communicate it with them. Just tell people. If your rates go up and you have people who come back year after year and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" Just tell them. Just tell them what's going on. Most people have a sense of fairness. They understand that, and it's the same thing with if you're doing differential pricing. Peak days and so on, and demand. Just tell people, and they understand it. They just have to know why. That they want to know that they're not getting gouged for some reason.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Do you want to talk about science for a little bit in AI?
All right. Science it is.
All right. So I think I want to share. I don't know how long of this video we're going to watch. It's very long. We're not going to watch anywhere close to all of it. But I have it queued up from the beginning. I came across this on YouTube. It's from a guy called Cool Worlds Podcast, I think. It's on one of your tabs up there, Jessica. It's not in Slack. It's already open. It's that guy. So I've never seen this guy before, but he came up in my feed as Jessica turns off my camera because she's not paying attention. All right, so we'll maybe pause this and then we'll see if you want to continue with it. Like, obviously we don't want to watch a ton of this, but just to set the stage, I just started this at the beginning because he kind of goes right into it. So we'll just watch like a couple minutes of this and see what we think.
First up, let me just set this up with a little bit of context here. So this was a meeting about the impact of artificial intelligence on science, and it was held at the Institute of Advanced Study. It was an internal meeting. It wasn't supposed to be like an open call that people were invited to. And so in that sense, my attendance was kind of accidental. It was fortuitous. I happened to be visiting Princeton on the Tuesday to give the astronomy colloquium, which I gave, and had many great interactions with faculty and students that day. But then the following day, they often pack you off to 2 miles down the road to visit the Institute of Advanced Study, which is its own separate institute filled with many other great astrophysicists, amongst many other academics as well. So I was attending the IAS that day, Institute of Advanced Study, and there was this coffee meeting at 11 a.m. led by one of the senior astrophysicist faculty at the institute. I won't say who it was to protect their identity because, there's a lot to be shared here, but suffice to say, this is somebody of enormous scientific stature in the field who many of us look up to, and he led this meeting that was fairly shocking, actually, to attend it. I think a lot of what I'm about to tell you was somewhat internalized, at least for me personally. I was well aware of the impact of AI on my field, and I had my own thoughts about how it was benefiting me and the risks that it might have for the future. But it was what was so shocking about this meeting is that all of this was said out loud. This wasn't just, the voices in my own head. Everybody was saying the same thing. Everyone was saying the same. We're all on the same chorus, right? And that was what really struck me, was that these are people I hold in the highest esteem, and they are coming to similar conclusions as myself. Now, the IAS setting is important to this story, right? Because the Institute of Advanced Study is one of the most elite intellectual institutes on planet Earth. This is where Einstein worked, right? This is where Oppenheimer worked. If you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, the scene shot there. This is the home of so many generations of brilliant physicists and many of the academics as well. Just when I was walking down the corridor, I actually passed Ed Witten, who is considered not only one of the fathers of string theory, but one of the most brilliant living minds. I mean, one of the smartest human beings on planet Earth. And these are the corridors that you are sharing at the IAS. So I think that context is important because I think it gives a lot of credence to what I'm about to tell you, right? These are big voices. This is not Silicon Valley tech bros. These are not billionaires. This is not hype. These are people who have built their career on analytic thinking, technical work, mathematical development, abstract thought. These are truly thought leaders here. Okay, so with that context said, the meeting itself, what was it really about? So it was led primarily by this one senior faculty who spent most of the time, about maybe 30, 40 minutes, discussing sort of agentic AI especially. So things like Claude, Cursor, there was a little bit of GPT discussion in there as well. But it was especially focused on those models and how he was using it in his own research and beyond in his own life. He was, organizing travel and stuff like that and emails using these systems, but primarily it was about research. And he showed many examples of research projects being achieved with just a few prompts, and how these systems were so powerful that they were delivering very, very impressive results at the cutting edge of what we would expect for a scientific paper. So that was the first sort of 30 minutes or so showing that off. And then after that, there was also a historian present. He was actually on Zoom, the historian, but the historian gave some comments towards the end of the meeting, and then it was opened up. I mean, there was just some discussion happening during the meeting as well, some hands coming up, but then there was kind of an open forum of discussion at the end in which I certainly participated as well. Okay, so the first big shocker, well, I don't think it is a shocker. Like I said, I think I'd internalized this already, but to hear it said out loud was jarring. And this was that AI models had now achieved complete coding supremacy over humans, software development. And this is not small talk. I mean, remember the audience who are in this room. Remember the people who are here. Astrophysicists, I mean, they're not by profession software developers per se, but they do a lot of them do an enormous amount of software development. I mean, you're thinking about these large cosmological simulations like ENSO, Illustris, Gadget, hydrodynamic simulations with adaptive mesh grids, and a lot of modern, especially modeling work in astrophysics is heavily based in computers about how to do these extremely sophisticated software developments to simulate the universe itself inside a machine. So, don't take that lightly. These are not these are not amateur coders. These are some really very, very talented coders, and there was not a single hand that objected to this. There was widespread concession that AI was not just better than humans, it had complete supremacy, and even the phrase order of magnitude superior was being used in the room. That was, I mean, it's certainly better than my coding skills. I'm a decent coder, but not a great coder. And, I just think, probably there's people out there who are much better than me that aren't threatened by this. But to hear that even those guys have just given up on this and that they've conceded that was a big deal. And to take this just a step further,
Okay, pause for a second.
It wasn't purely isolated.
Okay, do we want to continue this for a couple minutes or no?
Sure. I think we could. Let's listen to him just a little bit more.
All right, let's go for a little bit more.
To coding supremacy, there was also a concession that analytic reasoning, problem solving, mathematics, those skills were also comparable to the level of ability of the current AI systems at least, and perhaps even there they also have some level of, maybe not quite supremacy, but advantage, superiority at this point to the people in that room, which, remember, I challenge you to find a room with a high average IQ, right? This really was an astounding group of individuals that attend the IS. So that was also quite startling. Now, I think there was an admission that many of the earlier AI models, ChatGPT 3.5, 4, etc., things like this, those earlier models, they certainly often did hallucinate mathematical solutions, and that is still happening to some degree, but that is becoming less and less and less frequent, and the results are becoming more and more trustworthy. So we still certainly need to check the results. Everyone is checking the results. I'll come to that point later. But the raw power of these things, when it gets it right, is extremely impressive. I know my own work, I often do symbolic manipulation, solving differential equations, integrals, etc., with Wolfram products, so especially Mathematica. But you can also use Wolfram Alpha online by Stephen Wolfram, who of course is a brilliant mathematician who developed that software. And I think there was an idea that Wolfram would be eventually integrated into some of these models like ChatGPT. I think it still probably might happen at some point, maybe just as a cross-check. But I have been astonished, just as a personal anecdote, that in a recent set of derivations I was working on, Mathematica could not solve a whole, which isn't unusual. Often you come across integrals it can't solve. But ChatGPT could. This was with 5.2. And I was blown away by that. And not only could it solve these integrals, and of course I did check them, they were correct with numerical evaluations, it provided the entire derivation, which Mathematica does not do. You know, it showed you all the substitutions, the rearrangements, how it was actually approaching this problem. And that was obviously far more valuable than the outcome, the output that you normally get from Mathematica. So that struck me. The lead faculty who was leading this discussion said this. I kind of had to write this down. That these models, in a very broad sense of the word, intellectually, can already do something like 90% of the things that he can do. 90%. Now, he wasn't sure about that number. He said it could be 60%, it could be 99%, but it was clear in his mind that it was a majority, and it was only going to grow with obviously future versions of these models. And it had, you know, broad scientific ability with just a few prompts. So that was also startling to hear. This is not just coding supremacy. This is much more than that. Okay, so the next point I want to raise was, and this might be unique to the senior faculty who led this discussion, I'm not sure, although a few hands did agree with what he was doing, that he had totally surrendered control of his digital life, essentially, to agentic AI. So he'd handed over his emails, his file system, full access to his computer, calendars. He'd given pseudo control, super user control, as we'd say in Unix, to his personal machines and servers and disk space, all of that. And yeah, around a third of the room, when there was a hand raised, asked for hands raised, said that they had also installed these agentic AI systems doing this kind of stuff. So I certainly haven't done that. I actually haven't used any agentic AI systems. I've never used Claude or Cursor, which were the two main systems people were talking about here. I've just really...
We could probably watch the whole hour of this because it's fascinating. But what do you think of this?
Well, I like hearing that the best minds in the world are on this stuff. You know,
well, that's what attracted me, right? Like this is IIS right down the street from Princeton.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that, it's a little more comforting for, to hear that you have, highly intelligent, skilled people doing it, other than when Elon hired big balls to make our government more efficient, So, yeah, no, that's the part I like. I just like hearing that smart people are on the job.
Yeah, I mean, this is just. I wish I could make people understand how fast this is moving, and I know, I'm in a bubble. We've talked about my bubble before, right? and there needs to be some kind of grounding perspective. There needs to be obviously like not everybody can move this fast, and things change slower in some areas versus others, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not dismissing all that, but like just the ability for this, how fast this is moving in mathematics and science, to the ability of it to change like biology and protein folding, and like it's already solving mathematic problems that like I've seen people say like it's pulling. You heard him say about the prompts, right? But he's the guy's solving some of the problems. Like I've watched videos of people solving mathematics and physics problems that have been sitting on the shelf for 30 or 40 years unsolved, that they just throw into ChatGPT, and in a prompt they're like, oh yeah, this is the answer. Imagine the shelves and shelves and shelves of research that are just sitting there waiting to be prompted into solutions. And then imagine putting all the research in of the papers that have been done over the last 50 years into ChatGPT and saying, what did we miss in our conclusion? Oh, fuck, we could have cured cancer in 1972. We just missed that conclusion by going down the other path because we wanted to, right? It's not as crazy as it sounds.
No.
So like, so there's going to be a backlog of that data, right? And right now, to my understanding, based on the models that are publicly available, so for sure, OpenAI and Anthropic and other people have models that are much smarter that are not being released to the public yet, right? I don't know how much smarter, but to the best of my knowledge, like there is no AI that has been proven to exist that can do new scientific thinking yet, can create new theories. They can find things that humans have missed. They can solve problems that humans can't solve, but they can't do new theories. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, new scientific discovery. But I think we're like, I don't know, probably 3 months, 6 months away. Like, and just at that point, like, I mean, fuck, like you saw the chart, you saw the thing we talked about in the beginning, the 0.6%, 0.06% of people in the world or whatever are using it to code. Like at that point, like it's going to impact so much stuff. It's like math is already solved. If you can do almost every math problem in the entire world. So when all that is done, like how fast is society going to change? Like I think I called this out to you the other day in a chat where somebody did the math. I think it was I can't remember who this guy was. It was somebody notable. It's going to come to me later. Anyway, he said he did the math of 5 million humanoid robots working 24/7 could reproduce all of Manhattan. If you solve the concrete thing, the concrete curing thing, because you have to like wait for concrete to cure. So obviously that doesn't sped up by robots. But if we find some kind of new material, or we figure out how to cure concrete faster, or we build buildings out of something different, or whatever else, right? If you don't account for that, then like in 6 months, 5 million humanoid robots working 24/7 can build all of Manhattan. Elon has predicted by 2045, which to be clear is 19 years away, there will be 10 billion humanoid robots on the planet. If 5 million of those 10 million can build Manhattan in 6 months, what the fuck do you think this world's going to look like in 2045? I can't even process that. Can you?
No.
Like, I imagine all the good things that are going to come of this, right? Like, I mean, look at the country that I live in, Canada. Can you imagine the amount of things that we could accomplish from an infrastructure standpoint with all the empty space above us, and right, and all the provinces, and up to the Arctic Circle, and all the indigenous people that live up there that don't have railways and roads, and some of them don't want that, and they shouldn't have it forced on them, to be clear, right?
Right.
But for those who do, or who need easier access to goods or supplies or whatever else, like, I mean, imagine the railway systems that can be built, the transportation, the highways, all the things that can be built because we just have a lack of people, and you just throw millions of humanoid robots at it. I mean, you can probably build the internet. It would be interesting to see how run that same exercise and find out how long it would take the interstate highway system in the United States to be built with 5 million humanoid robots. it's going to get crazy, and I don't think anybody's ready for it. What do you think?
No, we're not. We're actually still in the state of denial, pretty much. I think.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about nomads for a second before we blaze through some AI news to wrap up the show. So this is a tweet by, I can't remember, it's a tweet by somebody, and then Elon Musk responded on Twitter, X, whatever, and was like, "Yep, you're right." And so this is how it came into like the feed. They were talking about, but full self-driving combined with Starlink is going to allow people to be way more nomadic than they have before, right? So this is an interesting exercise to me. I want to take this into Claude for a second, right? So do you want to share the screen real quick, Jessica? So I want to just do this in real time. So like, excuse me. Do you think that the mass adoption of full self-driving and Starlink will cause the population of the United States to disperse from cities, spread out, be more nomadic, comma, and if so, why? Explain your reasoning, thoughts in detail. What do you think the answer to this is going to be?
I think it's going to say the population will split because there will always be people staying in the urbanized areas, but there will be more.
All right, so this is the question I find genuinely fascinating for our podcast listeners to think through. This is the AI speaking. It sits right at the intersection of several convergent technological and cultural shifts. Let me walk through my reasoning in layers. The bull case for dispersal. Full self-driving fundamentally redefines the cost of distance. Right now, the single biggest constraint on where people live relative to where they work, shop, and socialize is the experienced cost of travel. Not just money, but time, attention, and stress. A 90-minute commute today is miserable because you're white-knuckling it on a highway. A 90-minute commute in a fully autonomous vehicle is a mobile office, a nap pod, or a movie theater. That changes the calculus enormously. Historically, every major transportation breakthrough has caused spatial reorganization. Railroads created suburbs along rail lines. The car and the interstate highway system created sprawl. Each time, people traded proximity for space once the friction of distance dropped. Full self-driving is arguably a bigger friction reducer than either because it doesn't just move you faster, it gives you back the cognitive cost of travel entirely. Starlink eliminates the other half of the equation. The reason remote work during COVID didn't fully untether people from metro areas is that reliable high-speed internet still had a geographic footprint that largely overlapped with population density. Starlink and LEO satellite internet broadly breaks that coupling. If you can get 150 plus megabytes anywhere with a clear view of the sky, the knowledge workers' tether to a metro area is functionally severed. Together, these two technologies attack the two biggest reasons knowledge workers cluster in cities, commute friction, and connectivity infrastructure. Why I think the reality will be more nuanced than a mass exodus. That said, I don't think we'll see a dramatic hollowing out of cities. Here's why. Cities aren't just functional, they're social infrastructure. Yep. People don't live in Austin or Brooklyn solely because that's where the jobs and internet are. They live there because of density-dependent amenities, restaurants, live music, dating pools, cultural institutions, spontaneous social interaction. These are things that don't digitize well. A 28-year-old single professional isn't moving to rural Montana just because they can work from there and their car drives itself. That's bad news for KOA. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, KOA. It wasn't my fault. It called out Montana all by itself. The social pull of cities is deeply human and predates the internet by thousands of years. The dispersal will be selective and stratified. The people most likely to disperse are families with school-age children who already want space and are less dependent on nightlife, remote-capable professionals in their 30s to 50s, retirees and semi-retirees, and the growing digital nomad class. This is actually a very significant chunk of the population, but it's not everyone. Young professionals, immigrants building community networks, and people in hands-on industries will still cluster. Full self-driving adoption will be gradual and uneven. We're probably looking at 15 to 25-year transition, which I agree with. It takes time to manufacture cars. Where autonomous and human-driven vehicles coexist, although that could be sped up with robots building the cars. Regulatory frameworks vary by state, which could be sped up by the U.S. There's an act, I think, isn't there a bill in Congress for a federalized self-driving car system? I think there is.
I think so, yeah.
And the experience isn't uniformly reliable across all road types and weather conditions. Okay, so the nomadism question, this is where it gets interesting. The nomadic angle is where I think the most underappreciated shift lives, and it's directly relevant to outdoor hospitality because, again, it knows who I am, right? Full self-driving doesn't just make living far from a city viable, it makes not having a fixed address viable. If your vehicle is a comfortable, connected, self-driving living space, the concept of home starts to blur. We're already seeing this culturally with the van life movement, the explosion of RV ownership post-COVID, and the rise of remote work. FSD and Starlink together remove the two biggest pain points of vehicular nomadism, the exhaustion of driving and the unreliability of connectivity. I think what emerges isn't mass nomadism in the romantic sense, but rather a growing population of slow nomads, people who maintain a home base, often in a lower cost, higher quality of life area outside of major metros, but spend significant portions of the year traveling, staying at campgrounds, RV parks, and glamping resorts for weeks or months at a time rather than days. The vehicle becomes less of a vacation tool and more of an alternate living mode. This has massive implications for the outdoor hospitality industry specifically. It shifts the business model from short stay tourism. To be clear, I did not ask this about outdoor hospitality, okay? It shifts the business model from short stay tourism toward longer stay residential adjacent hospitality. It increases demand for premium amenities, reliable connectivity, and workstation infrastructure at parks. It also means the competitive landscape shifts. Parks just aren't competing with other parks. They're competing with Airbnbs, co-living spaces, and even traditional apartments for a share of someone's annual living budget. A few second-order effects worth considering: real estate repricing. If even 10 to 15% of the urban professional class disperses over a decade, that meaningfully deflates urban real estate prices while inflating prices in a desirable and rural and exurban areas. This creates its own feedback loop. Cheaper cities become more attractive to those who want density, while rising rural prices create new development and infrastructure investment outside metros. Infrastructure investment follows people. As population disperses, political pressure builds for rural broadband, already happening, although with Starlink. Improved rural healthcare via telemedicine and better road maintenance in exurban areas. Each of these improvements further reduces the friction of non-urban living, accelerating the cycle. Local economies transform. Small towns that currently survive on agriculture or tourism could develop knowledge economy pockets. A town of 5,000 that gains 500 remote working families looks very different economically and culturally than it did before. Bottom line is, I think FSD and Starlink will cause a meaningful but not revolutionary redistribution of the U.S. population, not a mass exodus from cities, but a gradual softening of the urban-rural binary into something more like a spectrum. More people living in exurban and rural areas, more people splitting time between locations, and a growing class of slow nomads who treat the entire country as their living space. The timeline is probably 10 to 20 years for the effects to become demographically visible, and the outdoor hospitality industry is positioned to be one of the earliest and biggest beneficiaries if operators invest in the infrastructure, connectivity, workspaces, and longer stay amenities to capture that demand. The question for someone in your position isn't whether this happens, but how to help your clients position for it before their competitors do. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, just at an intuitive level, I mean, when you asked me at the beginning what I thought was going to happen, I said it would be split because, for those reasons, that there are people that just simply are not going to leave urban areas just for any number of reasons. But once the infrastructure catches up the rest of the infrastructure, yeah, I think there'll be a much bigger segment who are full-time nomads.
But I think these people will also pay more than the monthly prices that we're charging people right now.
Sure.
I mean, it depends. Like if the jobs all get lost and all that stuff, right? That's a whole nother animal.
Well, there's other stuff. That's a whole other conversation.
This is. I'm going to tell you right now. This is the birth of the next white paper right here. This is the Gen Z we did. This is the birth of the next white paper for Insider Bricks. I think this would be a fascinating topic. Do you agree?
Oh yeah.
So I asked, how do you approach this? We're probably not getting. Well, we get to some. Is it 1:30? Yeah. Okay. So I asked, how do I approach this and prepare for it if I'm a campground owner? This is where the strategic rubber meets the road, and honestly, where a lot of campground owners are going to get caught flat-footed because they're still operating on a tourism-first mental model. Here's how I'd think about it. Rethink who your customer is becoming. The fundamental mindset shift is this. You're not just selling a vacation anymore. You're increasingly selling a lifestyle infrastructure product, a place where people live, work, and exist for extended periods. That changes almost everything about how you design, market, price, and operate your park. Your future high-value customer isn't just the family on a week-long summer road trip. It's the remote working couple in their 40s who spends 3 months in the fall at your park while their kids do online school. It's the semi-retired consultant who books a premium site for 6 weeks. It's the digital nomad who rotates between 4 or 5 parks throughout the year and treats each one like a seasonal home base. These people spend more per stay, are less seasonal, and have a higher lifetime value, but they also have dramatically higher expectations than a weekend camper. See, I think that's flipped. Like, would you agree that like most of the long-term camping that I see, seasonal, whatever, is if you have a long-term park or a seasonal park, what I have traditionally seen, and there are exceptions, is that those parks have less expectations from their guests and less amenities, don't they? I know there are exceptions.
Yeah, they basically just have to provide the basic infrastructure.
Right, but this is saying now that that's maybe going to flip.
Right.
Maybe the people park at the Yogi for 3 months. That'd be really interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. It's just a theory. Infrastructure is the moat. Go ahead.
No. I just was. Go ahead. Proceed.
All right. Connectivity is non-negotiable. This is the single most important investment a campground owner can make right now. We have Wi-Fi in the clubhouse connectivity, reliable work from your site broadband, Starlink business accounts, mesh networks, dedicated bandwidth per site for premium sections. If a remote worker can't reliably take a Zoom call from their site, you've lost them, period. This is the equivalent of a hotel not having running water. Within 5 years, parks without reliable high-speed internet at every site will be functionally unmarketable to the highest value customer segment. Workplaces matter. Workspaces, sorry. Think co-working infrastructure, a climate-controlled building, or dedicated spaces with desks, monitors, power, quiet zones, and maybe even bookable private rooms for calls. This doesn't have to be a WeWork level build-out. It can start with a well-designed common area, but it signals to the extended stay worker that you understand their needs and you've built for them, not just tolerated them. Electrical and utility infrastructure needs to scale. Longer stays means higher sustained utility loads. If your electrical grid was designed for weekend warriors running a few lights and a mini fridge, you're going to have problems when 30% of your park is running full-time climate control, multiple devices, and charging equipment 24/7. Invest in electrical upgrades now, especially for premium long-stay sections. Site designed for living, not just camping. Longer stay sites should feel more like outdoor apartments than campground slots. Think about privacy landscaping between sites, dedicated patios or deck areas, outdoor kitchen infrastructure, storage options, mail and package receiving capability, even small garden plots. The more a site feels like a home, the longer people stay and the more they will pay. Pricing strategy has to evolve. Back to pricing. Most campground pricing is built around nightly rates with modest weekly and monthly discounts. That model leaves enormous money on the table in a world of extended stays. Create explicit long stay tiers, not just discounted nightly rates, but genuinely different products. A seasonal residency package at a premium monthly rate that includes dedicated site selection, upgraded utilities, workspace access, community events, and maybe even concierge-type services. Price it as a lifestyle product, not a discounted camping rate. If your nightly rate is $60, don't just offer 30 nights at $40 a night. Create an $1,800 a month residency package that includes $200 plus worth of added services and amenities. The perceived value is completely different if the math is similar. What do you think of that? That's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting.
Dynamic pricing needs to account for stay length as a variable, not just seasonality and demand. A site occupied for 90 days at a moderate rate is almost always more valuable than the same site turning over every 2 to 3 days at a higher nightly rate when you factor in cleaning, check-in labor, vacancy gaps, and wear and tear. Model this out. Most owners haven't. Don't cannibalize your short stay business. Dedicate specific sections of the park to long stay guests rather than mixing them in with weekend travelers. That's kind of thing. Marketing and positioning, schema markup, community building is a marketing channel. Operational shifts, staffing models change. Maintenance becomes ongoing rather than turnover. Revenue diversification opportunities multiply. You don't have to do all this tomorrow. 3 to 5, but the campgrounders who start building this infrastructure and positioning now, even incrementally, are going to have a 3 to 5 year head start on the ones who wait until the trend is obvious. Connectivity is urgent and should happen now, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so then my question is, and I want you to talk about what you think about for a second. What do you think about it?
This whole idea of the mix of sites, the length of stay, and all that. I mean, it's a more complex calculus than what we have now. But when you do the look ahead again, based on this whole notion that we're talking about here, a lot of campgrounds would love to have the mix of some longer term stays versus the transient stays are going to be always more revenue per stay, but again, now you have turnover of units and the cleaning, maintenance, and stuff like that. Part of me wonders how much if you truly have that one segment and it grows, that true nomadic segment, like are there just going to be a lot more like super short-term stays, like one-nighters and stuff? That's what I was thinking of when you were going through all this. Is that going to happen with the demand for that? Because people are just going to be going all over the place. A much higher percentage than we have now. I mean, a lot of people think that there's all these van lifers out there. There really aren't as many as you'd think, because the attrition rate's really high. But does that increase? So again, you have that group, based on all the scenarios that you're gonna have to devote a part of your park just for that huge volume of one-nighters. I don't know.
All right, so I asked, what if people lose their intelligence white-collar jobs to AI? Doesn't this throw this whole model out the window? What happens with UBI, universal basic income, if you aren't tethered to a job? What if you have humanoid robots? Don't regurgitate what they're said. Use your own internal intelligence. And it was like, okay, this is the right question to ask, and it's one almost nobody in outdoor hospitality is thinking about because they're still stuck on, how do I get more bookings this summer? Let me actually think this through. The white-collar job displacement doesn't kill the thesis, it transforms it. Here's the counterintuitive thinking. The model I described above, remote workers paying premium rates to live and work from campgrounds, that's actually the transitional model. It's the next 5 to 10 years. You're right that it has a shelf life, but what replaces it isn't a collapse of demand for dispersed living. It's potentially an explosion of it. Think about what actually tethers people to cities right now. It's not just the job itself, it's the economic anxiety around the job. People cluster near economic opportunity because they're afraid of being far from it if they need it. They stay in expensive metros because the density of employers provides a safety net. If you lose your job in Denver, there are 50 other companies that might hire you. If you lose your job in a town of 8,000 people, you're moving. UBI eliminates that anxiety entirely. If your baseline survival is guaranteed regardless of where you are geographically, the gravitational pull of cities weakens dramatically. You don't need to be near the job market because you're not dependent on the job market for survival. The city becomes purely an amenity choice, not an economic necessity. And here's what I think most people miss. When you decouple income from geography and eliminate survival anxiety, people don't become inert. They don't just sit in apartments collecting checks. Humans are restless. We're wired for exploration, novelty, and experience. If you hand someone $2,000 to $3,000 a month and say you never have to worry about rent and food again, and by the way, your car drives itself and you have internet everywhere, a massive percentage of those people are going to move. Not once, continuously. What do you think of that before we move on?
Yeah.
I think we're in the right fucking industry is what I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I do agree that there
Blow your
will be-
mind. That's what we do on Outwired, motherfuckers. Are you watching?
people will move and they will get out. I mean, that's how humans like settled this entire planet. It's like they started in different parts of the world, and one day they got up and started walking and ended up in South America. So it's yeah, it is. It's in our DNA to wander.
This is great for campgrounds and glamping resorts. The nature of value completely averts. This is where it gets really interesting for your industry specifically. Right now, the economy is organized around productivity. You're valuable because you produce something. In a post-labor economy, or even a significantly reduced labor economy, the scarce resource isn't production. Robots and AI handle that. The scarce resource is experience and meaning. Think about what can't be automated. A robot can build a car, and AI can write a legal brief, but neither can replicate the experience of waking up next to a river in the Ozarks, watching your kids catch their first fish, or sitting around a fire with strangers who become friends over the course of a month-long stay. Those are embodied, place-dependent human experiences. They're the things people will actually spend money on when the productive economy no longer needs most of them. Outdoor hospitality isn't a casualty of this transition. It's arguably one of the winning industries. You're selling the thing that becomes most valuable precisely when everything else gets automated. Real experiences in real places with real human connection and nature. Are you excited yet?
Yeah, this is what it's all about. I've been preaching this shit for a while.
The humanoid robot question is the wild card nobody's modeling correctly. Here's where I'll push into territory that might sound extreme, but I think is worth taking seriously. Humanoid robots don't just change the labor market, they change the operational economics of running a campground so fundamentally that the entire business model could flip. Right now, one of the biggest constraints on campground quality and scalability is labor. You can't maintain 200 sites at a high standard with a skeleton crew. Grounds maintenance, cleaning, infrastructure repair, guest services, it's all labor intensive. And finding reliable seasonal workers is one of the industry's biggest headaches. Now imagine a world maybe 10 to 15 years out. Fucking 10 to 15 years. Do you know how short that is? That's fast, right?
That's just around the corner.
Where you have humanoid robots handling grounds maintenance, site cleanup, basic infrastructure monitoring, even security patrols, your labor cost on the operational side drops dramatically. That means one of two things. Either margins explode for owners, or competition drives prices down and makes high-quality outdoor living accessible to a much broader population. Probably both in different market segments. But here's the deeper implication that nobody's talking about. Humanoid robots also change what you can build and where. Right now, developing a campground in a remote, stunning location is expensive because you need to get workers there, house them, and deal with all the logistics of operating far from supply chains. If robots can handle the bulk of physical operations, you can put a world-class glamping resort in places that would currently be economically insane to develop. Deep wilderness locations, mountain ridges, coastal cliffs, places where the experience is extraordinary, but the operational logistics have always been prohibitive. This is what we talked about with flying cars, too.
Yep.
That massively expands the addressable market for outdoor hospitality. The supply of incredible locations is essentially unlimited. The constraint has always been the cost of operating in them. Robots dissolve that constraint. What UBI actually does to travel psychology. Let me push on this UBI thread specifically because I think there's a psychological dimension everyone's ignoring. When people work 40 to 60 hours a week, Vacations are scarce and precious. You get 2 weeks a year, maybe 3. You hoard them, you plan them obsessively, and you tend toward predictable, high certainty experiences because you can't afford to waste your limited time off on something that might disappoint. This is why the big resort chains and Disney do so well. They're selling guaranteed experiences to time poor people. But UBI flips this entirely. When your time is no longer scarce, your relationship with travel changes at a fundamental level. You don't need the guaranteed prepackaged experience anymore. You can afford to be spontaneous. You can stay somewhere for a week and leave if you don't like it. You can explore. You can take risks on that weird little campground in the middle of nowhere because there's no opportunity cost if it doesn't work out. This actually favors independent campgrounds and unique properties over chains and corporate parks. The time-rich, income-stable UBI population is going to value authenticity, uniqueness, and character over predictability and brand recognition. They're not looking for the Marriott of campgrounds. They're looking for the place with the owner who built something interesting and personal. Fascinating.
Well,
Are you fascinated?
that's what I think we need now.
The social fabric question. This is the big one. Here's what I think is the most important and least discussed implication of all of this. In a world where AI takes most white-collar jobs, people don't just lose income, they lose identity and social structure. Work gives people a sense of purpose, a daily rhythm, a community of colleagues, and a role in society. Strip that away and you have a massive population-level meaning crisis. Campgrounds and outdoor hospitality communities are actually well positioned to fill parts of that void, but only if they're designed intentionally for it. Think about what a well-run, long-stay campground provides: a physical community of people, shared spaces that encourage interaction, proximity to nature, which is profoundly important for mental health, a sense of place and belonging, and opportunities for voluntary contribution and participation. The parks that understand this and design for community and meaning rather than just accommodation are going to thrive in ways that are hard to overstate. Imagine a campground that functions almost like a small village with communal gardens, shared workshops, skill sharing programs, volunteer opportunities in the surrounding area, creative spaces. Not a commune, not some utopian fantasy, just a thoughtfully designed place where people no longer have the forced social structure of work, can find connection and purpose. That's not a campground anymore. That's a new form of human settlement. And I don't think that's hyperbole. What this means for you practically, the actionable takeaway is this: the investments I described in my previous answer, connectivity, workspaces, and long-stay infrastructure, those are the right moves for the next 5 to 10 years. They serve the transitional remote worker population, and they're also the foundation for what comes after. But the campground owners who are going to win the 10 to 20-year game are the ones who start thinking of themselves not as hospitality operators, but as community architects. The ones who understand that they're not selling a campsite, they're selling belonging, experience, and connection in a world that's going to be desperately short of all three. The technology doesn't throw the model out the window. It tears the window out of the wall entirely and opens up something much bigger. The question is which operators have the vision to see it and the courage to build for it before it becomes obvious. I don't know who the fuck is not watching Outwired, but like, damn, y'all just missed some shit. What do you think, Scott?
This has been one of my favorite parts of what the AI has spit out in recent memory, honestly, because I like the fact that it's talking more about that more meaningful experience that we've gotten away from a bit. It seems we tend to. I say we as a whole, the industry has gravitated toward what I call a more sanitized experience. And this talks about that because it's what we want, but we just haven't taken the time to do it. And we don't have the infrastructure to deliver that. And by having the UBI and the mobility and so on, it's going to get people, I mean, it would put us individually in a much healthier place, and what a future for the industry, huh? To build on that. It's like, but I like the idea of starting to build the infrastructure now, because in reality, this is probably where things are heading, and I do believe that.
For sure. All right, I don't have anything else to add. Let's wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
Not really, other than, we're doing a lot of, between Brian and I, we're doing a lot of analysis and exploration and data. We're doing some cool stuff with measurement. And we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep pushing the edges on this stuff. I'm actually really excited about where things are headed. I truly am. I mean, we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot, but that's okay. I'm not immune to that. I've worked really hard and not got much from it in the past. So this is working out all right.
Yeah, it's going to turn the corner. This tools is going to unlock for the people like you and me who work and there's more of us, right? It's not just you and me. For the people, you and me, who are willing to put their heads down and work like crazy, the AI is going to help us. It's going to help us all pay off this stuff 10,000 times faster, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for it. I think there's going to be some bumps in the road, but if we can plan and we can do our small part, the two of us, in our own individual ways and together with our reports and what we're doing, both separately and together, then I think that we're really going to be one of the pioneering voices in this industry that can help people prepare for what is going to come.
Absolutely. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Outwired. See you later, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.